Welcome everyone to another episode in this series of unlearning the falsehoods. I guess we are in 22nd or 23rd episode. Now we are at a very important juncture in the history of Bharat, that is establishment of a national political body, that is Congress. Okay. Now Congress was established. Um, there are multiple theories out there, but scholars of history, academicians, and researchers all across the world, they overwhelmingly agree in the favor of this theory of safety valve. Okay, it was believed that the Britishers, they were acutely aware of the ongoings inside or among the gentry of the commoners in Bharat. So they had predicted and they had foreseen that there might come up a national movement of such a scale that might be too overwhelming for them to control, even with their, you know, even with their military superiority during that time. So they needed some sort of an inside ear into the sentiment of the masses, and hence the National Congress was established at the behest of a civil servant, a British civil servant, no less. Okay, so they had established, even the name of the that political party itself suggests that it has a certain inherent monotheistic or at least an English bias, because it was named Congress. It was named after something that has originated in the West. If it had some or the other name of, other uh, name coming that had an organic origin in this Bharat, then it still would stand some chance of being the mouthpiece of the masses. All right. So yes, so far Congress was established, and it is a well-known, it is a well-known established fact that it was established at the behest of the British to keep an inside ear into the sentiment of the masses, to check the pressure, because so far they have had outbursts from 1857 to all the other revolts. So they did not want to repeat that. So they needed some check. Okay, so people must have some or the other outlet to vent out their frustration, to vent out their, to express their opinion to the authority that was British during that time. So yes, but what happened was, when the Congress was established, okay, there were a few leaders who advocated peaceful constitutional methods. That is to say that they were demanding a separate dominion within the British colonial establishment, not exactly a sovereign, an absolutely sovereign Bharat. They were not demanding complete independence or Swaraj in the words of Shivaji, but they were demanding a dominion status. Okay, some or the other knowledge or information had spread across this geography that there were indeed other colonies as well, and they had a higher degree of freedom compared to our people. So they resorted to demanding, peaceful protests, constitutional mean. The idea of constitution itself is a Western import, but people don't really talk much about this because it is a very sensitive issue in our country, and that is, I would say, largely a problem with our country as well. There are conversations that are halted because we are scared to have those conversations, because it would bring down certain political parties, some political institutions, if we have those conversations and we move forward. you know the the jobs of certain politicians would be taken away if the masses of this country actually sit down and have honest conversation about things such as reservation, and the converted and the non-converted natives, and the friction between these two communities, the non-converted natives and the converted. If we actually sit down and have a decent conversation, many of the politicians will be out of jobs. But that is a conversation for a separate video altogether. Right now we'll focus on the National Congress. Now what happened inside National Congress that we have discussed in the previous video is, it got fragmented into two parts, meaning there were people who were advocating dominion status within the British establishment, and then there were people who demanded an absolutely and utterly sovereign Bharat. Okay, so the people who were on the side of the British, they, were labeled as moderates, and the people who were demanding, I would say, a sovereign Bharat, they were labeled as extremists. Okay, now there are multiple historians, who have corroborated this theory of Congress being an earpiece and the mouthpiece of the British. Some of them are R.C. Majumdar, S.R. Mehrotra. All they have written, tons of literature. So if you have not already gone through them, you must, because these are the things that our history textbooks will conveniently hide from you. So please explore these resources because it is beyond the scope of this video to individually sit and analyze all the historians that we have. But nonetheless, we'll focus on what we can. Now here is something that you need to understand is, to this very day, okay, to this very day, the official language of Supreme Court is English. The official language of High Courts is English, although with special permission and with special provisions and with the permission of the judges, you can use your vernacular to speak to the jury and the judges of the High Courts and the Supreme Courts. But nevertheless, the official language is English. Even the Parliament functions on the English language. So what does this tell you? What does this tell you? Okay, even to this day, okay. Let's forget about the past. Let's focus largely on 1950 when the Constitution, the document that we like to call as Constitution, was adopted in 1950. It was framed in English. All right, and it clearly shows. It clearly shows this subservient mentality. Even the physical person that was the British, they left, but their language is still there. And look at the cruel irony. I myself is talking in the language of English. Okay. All right. So even the National Congress that was established. So being educated in the language of English was a prerequisite to join the National Congress. So now you can really begin to comprehend the fact that I have mentioned in the previous video about Constituent Assembly, who framed the Constitution. Okay. So if getting elected to Congress, had a prerequisite or had a requirement of being educated in English in 1950, where the literacy was into single digits. Okay. The entire mass of the populace, the literacy rate of the entire mass of the populace was in the single digits, maybe 2 or 3%. So if you keep that as a prerequisite condition to join Congress, imagine who would join it. Okay. So even after the people who managed to join Congress, okay, do you think they were legitimate representatives of the masses of the country? I will leave that question to your ponderment. Okay, whenever you have time, you can ponder on these questions, but you will inevitably arrive at that conclusion that yes, there is still colonial consciousness at work. All right. So yes, we have established that the Congress was fragmented into two sections. One of them were called moderates, who were pandering towards the British, and the other ones were labeled as extremists. Okay. So when you label somebody as extremists, okay, now extreme as a word means, going towards the fringes. Okay, terrorists belonging to the ISIS are extremists. All right. There are people who advocate extremist methods must be labeled as extremist. Okay, but here there was a faction inside the Congress who were demanding a complete, utter and an absolute sovereign Bharat, but they were labeled as extremists. Okay, and to this very day, if you focus, to this very day, if you advocate about a complete and an utter sovereign Bharat, you will still be labeled as extremist. Do you think this is a coincidence? Again, I will leave it to your better judgment and your appeal to reason. All right. Now, there was this one particular individual. We are also going to do a character sketch about him as well. But by the way, there is also another series that we have started, that is a character sketch, meaning we are picking up certain individuals from our past, and there is a certain set of individuals who have been over glorified, meaning they have been given importance beyond what was needed, such as Mohandas Gandhi, J.L. Nehru, and many others. Okay, I'm not saying they do not deserve the credit that they get. Obviously, they deserve their fair share of credit for what they did. But what about others? Okay, so we are going to start another series that is a character sketch. The first character that I have chosen from the past is Vinayak Savarkar. He he is one particular individual that is vilified through and through in our history. None of our history textbooks talk about him. This, even on the social media platforms, if you talk about him, it's a one-way ticket to the cancel station. So that is one particular individual that we have chosen to start with. There are other individuals as well that we will cover in that series. But yes, another one was Bal Gangadhar Tilak. He was a Congress member, and he was supposedly the member towards the extremist nationalists. Okay, so here he was of the opinion, and these are his these are his words, not mine. Tilak argued in 1895 that the Congress should not attempt to westernize the native society in the name of reforms under the influence of the British, that it must instead focus on forging the non converted native unity. All right, he was very much rooted, his roots were very much rooted in the civilization and the civilizational ethos that we have carried forward since centuries. So yes, he was a controversial figure towards the British because the British were not able to win him towards their side. Okay, others who were classified as moderate nationalists, the British could manipulate them into thinking that yes, the day is coming where you will be granted more and more rights. But the people who were labeled as extremists or extreme nationalists, they were convinced of the fact that the British indeed are never going to leave. Okay, they plan to stay here for the foreseeable future, and the reason for their stay back was exploitation. Okay, so yes, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, he wrote articles upon articles. His articles had a revolutionary flavor that was not taken very well by the British. There were multiple sedition charges under the section IPC of 124 was slapped on him. This sedition charges as well, and the British, we have talked about in the previous video of the character sketch of Savarkar, that there were two brothers, the Chapekar brothers, who had assassinated the plague commissioner in the Bombay presidency, and they were inspired by the writings of Tilak. Okay, so these were again allegations. These were not proved, but the British believed that the writings of Tilak was inspiring the youth to take an extremist step, and hence they had to nip the problem in the bud. Yes. All right. Again, Tilak, like I said, he was a controversial figure. He advocated that all the festivals that are being celebrated, such as the Ganesh Chaturthi, the Shivaji festival, and all the other festival, he advocated that these festivals must be celebrated with gusto and vigor. Okay, this was the bedrock of his philosophy, that if you need to revive your civilization, and we have spoken about this in multiple of our posts as well, if you are to revive your civilization, what can you as a commoner do? Okay, you must celebrate the festivals like there is no tomorrow. Okay, celebrate them with vigor, celebrate them with full energy, and that is what Tilak advocated in the 1900s. All right, he advocated this. He advocated that festivals were a method to bring the masses together. The festivals were a method to connect one non-converted native to another non-converted native. This was a binding factor. Okay, so mere fact that he was labeled as a communal for advocating this purpose tells you a lot about the polity of the 1900s. And quite frankly, nothing has not a lot has changed. Even to this day, if you speak about uniting the non-converted natives, forging people to people bonds of the pagans, you will be labeled as communal. All right, so yes, there were multiple there were multiple factors that led to Bal Gangadhar Tilak being the enemy of the British within the Congress. Okay, So right after, right after these things we are speaking about the 1900s. So in 1905, we have talked about this in one of our previous episodes of Unlearning the Falsehoods, that in 1905 it was Bengal was partitioned. Okay, the entire area of the country of Bangladesh and the state of West Bengal and certain parts of Assam and other northeastern states that we see today formed Bengal presidency. Okay, but there were, I would say, dangerous demographic changes in 1900s. I'm talking about, we're not talking about the present where the situation has gone far worse. We're talking about 1900s, 1901 to 1905, where there were immense demographic changes. Okay, immense demographic changes. And realizing this, what British did was they partitioned Bengal into Eastern Bengal and Western Bengal. In the Eastern Bengal, the converted Muslims were in a majority, whereas in the Western Bengals, the non-converted pagans were in a majority. Okay, the reasoning given by the British for this was that Bengal was very large as an administrative, as an administrative unit, and we need to partition it for the convenience of administration. Now we can sit and debate about this as to what is the degree of truth in such justification given by the British, but inevitably we'll arrive at the conclusion that there were political motivations behind partitioning of Bengal. So yes, now here I'm going to quote. Okay, in 1905 when there were partitions, and we are talking about a territory in Eastern Bengal where the converted Muslims were in the majority. Okay, now this is a real life example about British choosing clear sides. We have spoken about this mutual alliance of benefit, mutual alliance of benefit between both the people of the book, a mutual alliance of convenience being, between the British and the converted Muslims, that we need to keep the pagan native in check. All right. So what happened was in Eastern Bengal, right after the partition, there were widespread riots. Okay, people were killed. Places of knowledge and places of knowledge that as temples, they were desecrated and destroyed. People were killed and whatnot. Okay. Now again, you'll ask, what is the proof? Okay, you are saying all of this. What if you are biased? So I'm going to quote. There was an American journalist, Henry V. Nevinson. Okay, during this time of 1905 when there was partition, he was traveling across the geography of Bharat. Okay, yeah, God bless America, I would say, because an American journalist, had he not been there, he would not have written this, and we would have never, come to find out what exactly was going on. So right after 1905 when Bengal was partitioned on religious lines, and British had come out in the open and taken this open stand that yes, we are going to side with the converted Muslims. Okay, these are the words of the American journalist Henry V. Nevinson, not mine. Let's see what he had to say while he was traveling. Temples were desecrated, images broken, shops plundered, and many Hindu widows carried off. Some of the towns were deserted. The Hindu population took refuge in any pakka house, that is, house with brick or stone walls. Women spent nights hidden in tanks. The crime known as group rape increased. Throughout the country, districts there reigned a general terror, which still prevailed at the time of my visit. So, if you think this was the situation in the parts of Bengal that are current day Bangladesh in 1905, okay, so fast forward it, a 1 century ahead, 1905 to 2005, and 2 more decades, that is 2024. Don't you think the problem would have compounded? I'll leave it to your better judgment. I'll leave it to your own appeal to reason. Okay. But that's it for this episode in the series of Unlearning the Falsehoods. More in the upcoming videos. Don't forget to check out our new series, that is Character Sketch. Thank you for watching.